Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our session today, Defining the Future of Black Entrepreneurship from Legacy to Leadership, a conversation with Reverend Shawn Amos. My name is Elisa Joseph. I am Chief Operating Officer of the U.S. Black Chambers. And on behalf of our president, Ron Busby, and our entire staff, we are just thrilled to have you join us today. I'd also like to thank the Famous Amos team that's on the line with us. And just a couple of housekeeping things before I introduce our magnanimous guest today. We will be looking at questions in the chat, so we'll be answering questions along that. We will have a little bit of time for some Q&A, so we will take a few questions at the end. But just sort of sit back and enjoy this. We are very excited about this opportunity to interview one of our judges for a Famous Amos Ingredients for Success Entrepreneurs Initiative. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Reverend Shawn Amos. He is a celebrated recording artist, NAACP Image Award-winning author, and dynamic multimedia storyteller known to audiences as the Reverend Shawn Amos. Raised in 1970s Hollywood, he developed an early entrepreneurial sensibility while helping his father, Wally, Famous Amos, launch the iconic cookie brand on Sunset Boulevard. After studying film at NYU, Amos built a multifaceted career spanning music, film, and publishing. He wrote scripts for A&M Films while cultivating his voice as a musician, exploring themes of race and identity. As a record executive, he produced acclaimed projects for Rhino Entertainment and Shout Factory, including the Grammy-nominated Rhapsodies in Black and Q, the musical biography of Quincy Jones, later leading initiatives for Quincy Jones' Listen Up Foundation. A prolific artist, Amos continues to expand his creative footprint. His forthcoming 9th studio album, The Reverend Shawn Amos Dance Party, blends original music with 1960s dance classics. He is also executive producer of the animated series Cookies and Milk, in development at Disney, host of the family variety series Famously You, premiering spring 2026, and author of multiple books, including the upcoming Franklin and the Fabulous Five. He additionally curates Black Box, a long-running jazz and blues series at Broad Stage, now in its 7th year. Please welcome me in having Reverend Shawn Amos join us for this wonderful conversation today.
Greetings.
Hi, Rev. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
Good. I'm so excited about doing this today. And I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to help our entrepreneurs be successful in their application process for this wonderful grant.
Well, I love the program. I love the program. I love the cookies. So
absolutely. I think we all love the cookies, right? And so what I really want to do is I want to jump right in. This program, I know USBC has been involved in it for like the past 5 years, but it preceded that. And it's wonderful that we're able to offer 3 entrepreneurs every year $50,000 coming out of this wonderful program. And so I want to really start with you, though, because one of the things that I mentioned, excuse me, in your biography was you grew up in an entrepreneurial household and you helped your dad launch Famous Amos. Tell us a little bit about that experience and why this initiative is so important to you.
I helped as much as a 7-year-old can help with anything.
That's right. That's okay. Writing signs, holding out boxes, collecting money. That's all good stuff.
Exactly. I stood on the milk crates. We had little half-pint milk cartons in the fridge, and so I'd stand on the milk crates behind the cash register, serving cookies in the front while my dad made cookies in the back. So I learned math at least and a bit about inventory. Even before Famous Amos, I grew up in Hollywood, and Hollywood is an entrepreneurial town. It's where people come from all over the world to make their dreams come true and to hustle and to start from scratch. And a lot of them are doing things that perhaps family members or friends told them they couldn't do or shouldn't do. They should pick a safer route. And why are you going to go out there to Hollywood when you can stay here and run the local store or be a lawyer or whatever. And so there's a lot of risk takers in that town. So even prior to Famous Amos, I grew up in a household in a town where I was surrounded by people who were betting on themselves all the time. And when my dad started Famous Amos, it was just the next evolution of that. So that was a lesson I learned really early on, specifically from my father, which is, bet on yourself. Have the courage to bet on yourself. And once you do, make sure you've got the follow through and you got the goods to back it up. But he was always a believer in chasing your own dreams.
I want to keep this focus on you just for a couple more questions.
Yeah.
You've built a personal brand. Your bio really speaks for itself across a multitude of platforms, whether it's music, media, storytelling.
Mhm.
I think all of that blends in when we look at our application process, but just as entrepreneurs, just generally, right? You typically take on multiple roles in what you're trying to do in terms of launching your business, keeping it going, sustaining it through the ups and the downs. Talk a little bit about what it means to build a personal brand, a professional brand, how that really helps elevate your business, and how that really helps you move toward the future.
Well, now more than ever, right? I mean, we live in an age where everyone is a brand, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
social media has just changed all the rules, and I think that for a lot of people, for people of a certain age, there's probably a bit of resistance or a bit of cynicism about doing some of these maybe seemingly performative actions, right? Like who cares
Mm-hmm.
about I'm not gonna I don't have time to post a TikTok or I don't have time to be wasting with a PowerPoint presentation that's going to last for 5 minutes and be obsolete, whatever it is. But I think two things have happened. I think on one hand, you have to think of yourself as the audience and think of your own behavior during the day. And all of our brains have been retrained. In some ways, are horrifying, but we've all been retrained to we make judgments really fast. We flip through these social media pages and we doom scroll and we waste our time on all these different platforms. And we're very astute at picking up and making a judgment, making a determination what we're seeing, from the first few seconds. And that's always been the adage, right? You make an opinion on
Mm-hmm.
someone within the first few seconds of meeting them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing that all day long. So how you show up is so much a bigger part of the story now. The optics of it all are just a bigger part of the story. And it's also, and I guess less, than seeing it as a burden, it's really an opportunity. In some respects, it's maybe easier to say who you are because so much of this is now nonverbal, right? And it's visual and it's the softer stuff that is maybe a little harder to quantify, but it's still really valuable, right? And so to pay attention to all these details of, how do what is your brand personally, and then by extrapolation, the business you have, what does it represent? Like in all areas, it's great stuff to think about. What do you stand for? And what are your values? And what difference do you want to make? And how does it all connect? How is making sure there's no disconnect? You say you want to do something, but then you look a certain way, or you sound a certain way, or you're making these decisions, and all of a sudden it becomes confusing. You just want to make the through line for the end user is easy and clean, and as frictionless as possible. And it truly starts with how you show up, and then flows out from there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think about your dad and really the charisma, right, that he had. I mean, he started his business basically what we'll call the family and friends model. There was no, traditional uh, access to capital available to him. He couldn't go to a bank to start his business. He
Yeah.
really relied on friends, and you got to have a little bit of a level of not only charisma but really knowing where you're going, right? And I think that's what you were
Yeah.
talking about just a few minutes ago, which is sometimes we overcomplicate things, even when we're thinking of it, whether it's digital or whether it's just analog. The ability to just clearly articulate who you are, what you're about, what your business is about, what you do, how you serve, how that shows up. Again, that line of demarcation that you were just talking about, I think is really so critical. And because this application in particular is an online application, means we got to use digital tools to be able to get the point across. What are some of the things that you're looking at when we are reviewing these applications in particular, that is really important for a business owner to get across?
Wow, that's a, I mean, there's the hard stuff and the soft stuff, right? So
Mm-hmm.
on a just hard level, it's like what is this business, right? And does
Mm-hmm.
it serve a purpose, and does it fill a hole in the marketplace, and is there a need for it, and is there a pathway to growth, and does it just do the numbers make sense? And does the world either need this, or the world doesn't know it needs it, but you've got a plan to convince people it does need it. I always think about Steve Jobs and Apple, how he said people don't know what they want until you tell them what they want, right? So
Right.
it's not always necessarily about this need that has defined itself, but there's just a hard number sort of business plan piece of it. And then there's the soft stuff, which is what we've been talking about, which is, do I believe you? Do I just believe you?
Mm-hmm.
By how you show up and the way you articulate it, and your charisma and your just sense of, wow, this dude's going to do it whether I help him or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This woman is going to make this thing happen, and whether I get on board or not. You just believe it. And the believing comes from the that unspoken vibe, right? It's a vibe thing on some level. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also having, I tell my daughter, you got to be responsible. You got to prove that you can show up day after day and bring things to completion. You got to execute. And so have you shown that? Do I believe you're someone who not only is charming and can light up a room, but can also get things done? Because as you mentioned, you've got to do everything. You got to do everything. You've got to be the PR person, and you got to be the stockroom clerk, and you've got to be the accountant, and all of it up in those early days. And so, do I believe that, or do I not believe that? I remember seeing a lot of submissions in last year's competition, and there's such a disconnect between the idea and the person presenting me the idea. I just didn't believe them. I didn't believe it. I mean, on paper, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. And I look up, I'm like, oh, I don't buy it. You know,
Yeah, I think that's an important piece. It's while this is a grant, it's still capital at the end of the
oh
day.
yeah, man.
It still follows the rule of why people give out capital, whether it is a grant process,
Mhm.
whether it's a loan process, whether it's a level of equity. There's still some of the what I would call sort of the major um, elements that you need to include. Whether you have a business plan on you or not, you got to know what your business does. You got to know the ins and
100%.
outs of it. And really
100%.
being prepared, I find being prepared, whether it's starting out from the beginning or even your third or fourth year, is really, really critical in being able to not only articulate it, but to really move your business forward.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, this is twice as much money as my father started Famous Amos with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
and not
absolutely.
not accounting for inflation, it's a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So I also think what people don't realize is, riffing on what you said,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a loan or or an investment or a grant or a family gift or whatever, people who are providing this funding, it's their name and their reputation on the line as well in some respects. And so even if it's charity, and this isn't, charity necessarily.
Right.
So it is really taking into consideration, all these things are in essence, these are transactions, right? And somebody wants something. Both sides want something out of this,
Right.
right? And so it's having the sort of foresight and spending time in silence to think about, well, what does this other person want? This person who's thinking about giving me money or loaning me money, whatever. What do they want out of this, other than, if it's a loan, obviously they want the money paid back with interest, but that's still only part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are relationships that are being formed, and you have to think about what is in it for the other person and be able
Mm-hmm.
to um, articulate that.
Because people do want to invest in other people's success. I think
Oh yeah,
folks don't always think that that's the case, but it really is. But at the other
man.
side of the coin, if you say you're going to do it, you should do it. If you're going to perform and you're going to grow your company, what you
Yep.
said on the piece of paper, what you said in the video really matters at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
for all of the money that has been given to a lot of the firms, currently it's about 15 firms already that have received funds. When I go back and look at some of the work they're doing some incredible things because
Mhm.
they did what they said they were going to do. And their business is growing as a result of that. Talk
Yeah.
about what that impact is, particularly when you get, whether it's the first investment or money or it's multiple rounds of money. Talk about what you've seen in your world as part of Famous Amos, but just in your own professional business, what you've seen when you really do take the money that was invested in you and have it pay itself forward. What are the kinds of things that you've seen happen?
Oh man, I mean, one is just the increase in just self-confidence, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's validation, right? And I think what I love about entrepreneurs is that, their ability to push forward despite naysayers, despite all sort of logic and a lot of them.
Yes, yes.
They're just gonna go for it. It doesn't matter. My girlfriend always tells me it's like it really doesn't matter what I tell you about this, does it? And I'm like, not entirely. Yeah, yeah. But so I love that. But at the same time, when you've got validation, even for the most hard-headed, stubborn, determined entrepreneur, to finally get real validation, in this case, the form of money, it
Mm-hmm.
it 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 changes your mindset, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, you throw your shoulders back a little bit. You're like, okay, I'm actually this is, someone else is giving me a vote of approval. Someone who knows in some instances maybe better than I know, because they've done
Right.
it before. They've grown their own capital. So the confidence building is just huge, and it just relieves. We talked about all the hats one has to wear being an entrepreneur, and to be able to shed a hat or two, to then dive deeper into one area of the business, it gives you a little bit of breathing room, to be able to, focus on something that needs additional focus.
Right.
So,
That's sort of working on the business, not in the business
yeah,
constantly, right?
well
That
said.
little bit of
So,
that little bit of relief, I'm going to call it,
yeah.
really does help you be able to focus in an area of true growth because now you've got somebody else or you've put in place a process that
Hmm.
helps move that one or two things that you were doing out of your way to be able to really see your path straight forward. And I
100%.
think that's what I've seen with a lot of these
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
And you can take a bet. You can maybe,
Yeah.
place a strategic bet or two that you haven't been able to
Mm-hmm.
place because it'd be too risky, to place it. You can't afford to lose the bet.
Mm-hmm. I do want to spend a little bit of time on the application itself, and we'll talk about some other things as well. But
Sure.
you know, um, we wanted to do this for everyone who's applying because over the past few years we've seen some really wonderful applications.
I'm
We've
looking at all these people right
seen,
now. Sorry, my eyes are like,
yeah,
I'm like, oh
you
my
look
God,
at the
all these
chat,
people from
yeah,
all over the place and all these
yes,
wonderful
absolutely.
businesses. It's so exciting.
We've
Wow.
seen great applications, but
Oh my God.
part of sometimes it doesn't get someone through is understanding and spending time understanding the rules around the application itself,
Hmm.
whether that be word count, length of video time, um, answering the question directly, right?
Rule
All
number
of
one, if
the,
you're
that's
asked a
number one.
question, answer the question.
Directly, that's right. Are all the things that I really feel people need to sort of prepare for prior to actually going in and just submitting online. Tell me, for some of the things that you've seen, what are some of the things that are kind of jump out to you that made you sort of, take a step back or, say, I know you said a few, some people you can determine it doesn't really make sense, but there are others where they're really, really close. And there's like one or two things that just
Yeah.
didn't either jump out or just weren't followed.
Yeah, I think another thing I like to say in relation to that, yes, I mean there are some applications that just right off the bat
Mm-hmm.
are discounted because they clearly didn't take it seriously enough on some
Mm-hmm.
level, right?
Right.
And I always say, if someone's going to write me a letter or write me an email and pitch me, and they can't spell my name correctly, or they can't put my name in the letter, like automatically I'm not returning it, right?
Right. Or they didn't, or they don't even know, they didn't take time to even research who you were or research
Yeah,
what
so
the
like
program is about. Like you got
totally.
to know who you're serving and why you're
Yeah.
serving.
So
Yeah.
let's just discount that for a second. So that's like
Mm-hmm.
done, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you get into, you've got maybe an area of business that isn't necessarily the most competitive, or you don't really see the growth area or whatever. You're sort of
Mm-hmm.
discounting the applications, based upon just the business itself, and some
Mm-hmm.
businesses are just stronger than others, right? So now you've got this group of, candidates who are finalists, let's say, and they're spelling your name correctly and they know what they're applying for and they answer all the questions. And so now you're getting to like really, narrow areas of difference, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it is about, how thoroughly are you answering these questions and where does the passion show up and where's just a real attention to detail, right? And where are you going an extra mile? Are you providing, more numbers than you need to provide? Are you
Mm-hmm.
it's what is that extra sort of that pushes you from good to great. I'd also say it's just important. I think having someone else look at these things, and someone who maybe is somewhere where you want to be. I worked for Quincy, as you mentioned in my bio, for a number of
Mm-hmm.
years, and he would always tell me, surround yourself as much as you can with people who are where you want to be, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
punching above your weight. So, is there
Right.
someone within your circle who maybe is not the source of the money you need, but has been around the block a bit? Can you show them the application, show them the video, get their tips? Don't, resist doing this in a vacuum, which is hard for entrepreneurs who have to do everything in
Mm-hmm.
a vacuum and are
Right.
used to going it alone. But it's important to run this stuff by someone else to get another eye on it. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not, and someone's going to be honest with you and tell you straight versus like, oh, it looks great. And, ignoring all the typos in it or whatever it is. But it's just critical because when you get into that finalist realm, it's real, we're talking about few degrees of separation at that point.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen quarter of a point,
Yeah.
half a point, like that much of a difference
Yeah.
between
Totally.
the top three
Yeah.
and everyone else.
Yeah.
I do want to sort of also,
Can I say one thing also? Sorry.
yeah, sure,
And
go ahead.
you said, as you speak of my father, it's just the enthusiasm, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like the enthusiasm is just, it's key, right? And it's also easy to sort of get in the weeds on it and sort of, and all this stuff has all the numbers and it's all like da 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 and all lined up. But the sort of life and the joy has been sucked out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you want to keep the joy in there for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like I want to believe, but I need reasons to believe.
Yeah, it shouldn't be clinical, right? I mean, this
Yeah,
isn't this isn't a medical report.
exactly, exactly. The other thing too, going back to both your dad's career and yours in particular on the visual front. One of the things I think that's even different from the beginning of when people were doing submissions at the onset of this program
Mhm.
and to now is that there are a lot more tools
Yeah.
at people's disposal, particularly in being able to craft a really great looking video. Before, there really wasn't a lot. Now there are, all kinds of tools out there that you can record it on your phone and you can kind of still push it through these other filters to make it look the way it
Mhm.
should. Or if you're having problems with your word count, you can use word count applications. Word has those, everyone else, that helps you streamline that. Talk a little bit about tools. I do. You use a lot of digital tools in the work that you're doing. Talk about the use of tools, not necessarily to depend or rely on, but to enhance and
Right.
amplify.
Yeah, you can create an AI avatar of yourself and submit that as your video. Uh, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's easy. There's really no excuse, right, for
Mm-hmm.
for for any type of for any type of, I guess, sloppiness,
Mm-hmm.
amateurness. I think I mean everything should be intentional, right? And so if you focus on video content, the video part of the application, which I find to be kind of the most important piece for me. I
Mm-hmm.
just, and maybe I'm biased because it's an area I spend a lot of time in. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I certainly am, but I just feel like that's a chance where I can just look this person, right? and see what's going on.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing I can get to sitting in a room with someone, just having a conversation like
Right.
this we're doing right now. I'm sure people are online and they're looking at you and they're looking at me and they're making a million judgments about
Right.
whatever, right? It's just the way it is, right? But you learn the most from someone by seeing how they move and picking up their vibe. And so, and seeing what choices they make and those soft choices, right? Were they choosing to film this video? Is it lit? I've seen videos and people are on their patio at sunset and they're silhouetted and they look like they're wearing their pajamas and Crocs. and, and it's so noisy in the background. I can't even hear what they're saying. It's like, what are you? What are you? This is
Hmm.
like insane. It's
Hmm.
just you're applying for $50,000, and
Right.
this is how you show up. It's just craziness to me.
No, I
Um,
think those tips are important because, sometimes people don't know. We're in such a digital, such a social media driven world. I mean, I'm going to
mhm,
pin it in the social media realm because we can be much more relaxed. We can be much more of who we are,
mhm.
just naturally in our own environment. But even with this, while we want genuineness, we also want a level of professionalism,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
this is a job
You got to look
application,
like
right?
you are a business
This
owner.
is a job application. You're
The
showing up for a
job,
job.
right?
You're showing up for a job interview. This is showing
Right.
up for a job interview. I
Hmm.
mean, full stop. I mean,
Hmm.
and it's not like you know anyone at the U.S. BC or at or at Ferrero, Famous Amos, and you don't
Right.
know me. Yeah, and so you're showing up as a stranger. My
Hmm.
father got $25,000 from three friends. He knew those people, right? I don't know what he looked like when he showed up and asked for the money. He showed up
Hmm.
with cookies. I know that, but I
Hmm.
don't know what but that's one thing, right? Like you're not asking friends or family for money. This is a job interview as far as I'm concerned. And so
Hmm.
you show up in a way that you think your business and yourself as your business, should be best presented, represented. And that's just as simple as that for me. And so you got to put your best foot forward. And those videos to me just tell me a lot about how you think about yourself, how you think about the business, how you seriously take this, what you consider to be good or good enough or great.
Hmm.
It says you're saying a lot about yourself without saying anything at all, and that's critical. And it's a big part of it. And going back to what you said with my dad, it's like that's he showed up in a way where people are like I'm in. There's just and I think a lot of it was who he was just naturally, gifted.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of it was premeditated and thought out. I mean, the Panama hat and the
Yeah. And
kazoo, the
that's the part
horses.
that people don't think about, right? That it looks it's authentic. It's not that it's not, but
Totally.
it is also planned,
Yeah,
right? There's
100%.
also a lot going on behind the scenes to show up
Yeah,
for
totally.
this person that I want to ask some money from.
Yeah. I could wear a million glasses. I'm wearing these. Right? I mean,
Hmm.
I could have worn anything showing up here today, and this
Hmm.
is what I wore. Why did I wear this? It's how I
Hmm.
feel comfortable. It's how, but everything says something. Everything says something.
Hmm.
And so you got to think about all the things that you want to be saying.
No, I appreciate that so much because I think we part of this is about giving people real insight, and not just for this, but for anything moving forward. All the other work that we do at USBC with trying to help people access capital, access contracts, all of those things,
Yeah.
all these little tidbits, all align to anything else that moving forward you want to do as well. And
Yeah.
so, I want people to get a really good footing, really good foundation
Yeah.
around it. And I think, what you're sharing between you and your dad in particular, I think is important because your dad went on, it wasn't just this business, he launched a few more businesses after this.
Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest one for sure. But can I
Mm-hmm.
say one other thing about that?
Yeah, sure.
I just, you know, this is Black entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
not just entrepreneurship.
Right.
And the reality for my father 51 years ago, and the sad reality now, all these years later, is
Mm-hmm.
that the majority, the vast, and you know this more than I do because it's your business, but,
Mm-hmm.
the vast majority of Black entrepreneurs work outside of this system,
Right.
this capitalist system. And so and there's a reason why Black businesses by and large, look and are run, the way they do compared to a lot of white counterpart businesses. It's because of the access they have and the access they don't have, to
Right.
capital, to real estate, to clients, to products, to supplies, to whatever it is. And so as a result, those businesses are there's sort of a different set of rules, right? And they're run in a certain sort of way. And I totally get that and appreciate that. Um, but we deserve Black entrepreneurs deserve to participate in that broader system when they do get it, when they do through a combination of perseverance and skill and charm and luck, because it's sort of all of it at the end of the day, when it,
Mm-hmm.
are able to get into that broader system, they make massive contributions. And we all
Mm-hmm.
know those people. My father's one of them, and right.
Mm-hmm.
But to leap from one to the other, if one wants to operate in the broader system and not just within the Black entrepreneurial system,
Right.
then the rules are different, right? And showing up looks different. I think that's a decision too, right? Like who is your audience and
Yeah.
how are you looking to grow? I'm looking, through my lens. I want Black entrepreneurs to be on the biggest stage possible. I want them to be on the biggest stage possible. And so I know it's a Black entrepreneurship program, but I'm not looking at these submissions necessarily as, Black businesses. I'm looking
Right.
at them as businesses run by Black entrepreneurs that I want to succeed and get into the broader economic, system.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
so,
total. That is totally right. I mean, the we specialize in what I call giving answers to the test,
mhm,
because there's so much of a gap between what Black entrepreneurs know in the greater capitalist world,
mhm.
from how you interact, or even what an application, a bank application, what it's actually saying and how you're answering it. There's a
Yeah.
huge gap. There's a huge language difference. That's what I call it,
Totally. And they're
you
looking
know?
to and there's a lot of games and tricks and look and there's a lot of usury and a lot of folks looking to be opportunistic at every and sort of
Absolutely.
prey upon that lack of understanding.
Understanding.
But
Mm-hmm.
but the combination when you have both, and that's why Black businesses who sort of jump over, for lack of a better,
Mm-hmm.
are like so magnificent because the Black community is one that like hustles like no one else. I mean, I wrote a Substack about my father, his memorial service, called him the great, American Negro hustler. He was like, I mean, like we can hustle, we can hustle and we can work harder than anyone else. And our creativity and our creativity sort of fuels so much of American culture from start to finish, right? So there's just no doubt that, we have all of what it takes to operate on that bigger stage. But having been disenfranchised from it in key areas, just and having to accept this sort of side system,
Mm-hmm.
it's you know, I, and also the sort of stereotype of like, oh, what it means to sell out and da da da, and it's like, ugh, it's like, we want to be on the biggest stage possible, period,
Mm-hmm.
full stop. And the game is the game, and you got to play by the
You got
rules.
to understand the rules. You got to know how to adapt the
Yeah,
rules to where you want to go
the
in the
rules exist,
space.
and, you got to operate in the world as it exists, and this is the world
Mm-hmm.
as it exists. And so, I just want to see when I'm looking at these applications that people understand that, and aren't sort of dealing in wishful thinking or everyone's going to come to me and do it my way. No. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. I'm going to have one more question and then we'll
Yeah.
open up questions. I'll have the team open up some questions for us. Um, as we're closing, I know that Famous Amos Success Ingredients for Success would love to give out more awards. We give out 3 of the largest awards among most entrepreneurial programs in the US,
Mhm.
period, from a grant perspective. Let's talk a little bit about maybe what early stage founders might need in terms of lessons they take away. So whether or not you win a grant here or not,
Mhm.
we are banking on your success across the board. We
Yeah.
want our businesses to be successful. So in closing, we've given some tips about what we need to do from the application realm, but just in terms of your own growth and sustainability moving forward, can you give us a little bit of your thought, your insight on some of the tips that early stage founders can use, whether that's relative to creativity, resilience, reinvention, the standard ABCs, whatever that might be?
Yeah,
What
God.
does it look like in your world? You're talking to entrepreneurs all the time. You're an entrepreneur yourself. What are sort of these lessons and takeaways that we can gift those who are listening to us today?
Yeah. God, that's a tough one. I mean, we only have 20 minutes left.
Mhm.
I think entrepreneurship is a constant dance between hubris and humility. And and you just have to always be making sure you're floating between those two and not getting stuck too much in hubris and getting too stuck too much in humility.
Mhm.
And and how does one do that? You have to keep challenging your assumptions, yeah, and not be and be unafraid to receive feedback. Collaboration is so important. I mean, at the end of the day, I went to film school at NYU, and thought I wanted to be a film director at one point. And what I loved about being about filmmaking in general, but that form of collaboration is that there's someone who clearly has the vision, who's clearly in charge, has to make the decision about how this whole thing is going to look, this film that
Mhm.
involves acting and sets and lighting, right? But they are allowing every individual's expert, for their passion, their thing to come through, right?
Right.
As opposed to choking all of it, right? So
Right.
there can't be this sort of this addictive need for control, right? It's like you're in charge, but you're not always in control. That's okay.
Right.
And so it's this dance of looking for collaboration, looking for opportunities to have your assumptions challenged, but then being certain about the direction that you want to go, to take all that information and know when it's something worth listening to and it fits it, or doesn't fit it, being soft, as they say, sort of in yoga
Mhm.
practice, right? Like, being
Mhm.
being soft and knowing that everything changes, circumstances change, and resisting this rigidity, like this is the way it's got to happen, and this is the way it's got to go down, and that's the only way it can happen. Being soft about it. I just submitted the last draft of my book that you mentioned, and I was reading the proposal I wrote for it 3.5 years ago. It's like nothing like the book. I mean, it is same character, same, I mean, but it's like, oh my God, it just went a totally different way because that's what was required, right? So I discovered
Mhm.
along the way. So,
And that was your
um,
journey, right? I'm sure there was a lot of collaboration. You got
yeah,
editors, you got people trying to guide you. You got your own guardrails to stay
100%.
true to where you want to go. But you
Yeah,
also understood how to take feedback to make it the
yeah.
best product
And
for
the
you.
ego comes in, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
screw you, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But
Yeah.
you sort of like take a breath and like let it, let it sit in,
Let
but
it sit a little bit.
not
Yeah.
get too attached. It's like, don't get too attached to any one feeling, because it's all fleeting anyway, right? And so,
Mhm.
yeah, that's all a little, woo woo, but
No, I appreciate that. We're going to
yeah,
take some questions if you
please,
don't mind.
yeah,
So, Philip or Tiffany, so team Tiffany Aller and Phil Dunn are on, everyone. They're sort of our backstage crew today. Um, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a couple of the questions that you all are seeing, everyone know that what we will do after this is not only will you get an excerpt of this presentation, but we'll also do our best to answer the questions that we're receiving within the chat. I believe we're taking notes on this so that we can get get you as many answers as possible afterwards. And we will be doing, just so you know, we will be doing one more of these sessions in a couple of weeks because we want everybody to be able to put their best foot forward in this application process. So, Phil or Tiffany, do you want to just throw out a couple of questions that you're seeing?
Yes, ma'am. And this has been a very, very insightful conversation. We want to thank you, Reverend Shawn Amos. Our first question comes to us from Malika Catron. The question is, as someone who has both inherited a legacy brand and redefined its future, what do you believe that funders are truly looking for in entrepreneurs who are building on existing foundations? And how can funders position themselves to not just receive grant funding like the Famous Amos Ingredients for Success Entrepreneurs Initiative, but how to leverage it as a catalyst for long-term growth and market expansion?
Oh my God, it's a little out of my pay grade. Um, I look, I mean, it's all momentum, right? I mean, all of this is an iterative process, and you've got to be able to, take a win, whatever that win is. A PR win, a financial win, a sales win, and figure out how you leverage it for the next thing, right? So, it's constantly. Um, you have a good friend, a drummer, Steve Jordan, who says, you got to keep having breaks. It's like I asked him
Mm-hmm.
years ago, like, what was your, biggest break? It's like you gotta always have a break.
Right.
You're always looking to create your next break, and so with every win you've got, one of the first questions should be, okay, how do I take this win and in what ways can I leverage it for the next win? Identifying what that win is you want, um, I'm heading into a promotional period early next year with my book coming out and an album coming out. And so one question for me is, okay, obviously I want to be able to maximize the sales of that book. I want to maximize the sales of my album. But I also want to just in general, have those things raise my profile that much more. So then I am that much more um, marketable and bankable to the kinds of talent buyers for whom I want to play bigger music festivals, play bigger shows, right? So, it's like it's the win for the thing you've just received, but how can the thing you receive then serve other needs you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to know
Mm-hmm.
what those needs are, and not everything can like serve that need. But
I would agree with that part that you're just talking about because I think that's really important. She talked a little bit about the funders part. And so I always think of funders as kind of space between the notes because there's times where we want to have sort of a cookie cutter approach to I wrote this out and this is what I share with every single funder that comes through.
Mhm.
And it doesn't fit every
Yeah.
single funder. And year over year, funders change their focus and their emphasis. And you really have to be in tuned and aligned to understanding that and not sort of take the shortcut of I'm just going to submit this and this should satisfy all needs. There's no way that that can do that because
Yeah.
our external environment changes, your
Sure.
internal environment is changing and everything that you're doing. The markets change,
Yeah.
funding
Well, yeah.
changes, the normal sort of day to day of what goes on, right?
It goes back to knowing your audience, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
you got to know your audience. I
Yep.
mean, in all things you do, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
product for the sales, for the funding, for the PR. I mean, just you always got to just be really clear about, who is my audience, why, well, number one, why am I doing this? Whatever this is, right? Why
Mm-hmm.
am I looking to raise this money? What's the point of it? Who are the possible people out there who have this money for this purpose?
Right.
Who have this track record, and
Right.
what is the story that's going to most catch their attention? But this strategic thinking. Um, and this thoughtfulness around it is just so critical, and which is means slowing down a little bit, which is hard
Mm-hmm.
to do when you're paddling in the water and trying to just
Absolutely,
stay
right?
afloat.
Phil,
Great,
next question.
great responses. And it takes us into this next question, which talks about the types of businesses that should be participating in this
Sure.
program. Be
Mm-hmm.
Leadership is Don Christian's brainchild. It is an organizational effectiveness, leadership, advisory, and consulting firm for service-based businesses. Now, when they don't have a physical product in hand, what should service-based businesses do, or what do they need to exemplify in the application process in order to be successful? And what helps them stand out best in this type of an application process? Is it testimonials, clients, frameworks, etc.? anything else that could truly help them stand out? What does that look like for
Uh,
service-based
I'm going to go
business?
to the first thing first. It has to make money. So this grant is not one that is funding whatever the current enterprise is. This is really about future growth. And your submission has to clearly demonstrate. So we don't care whether it's a good or whether it's a service, but it has to clearly demonstrate as a for-profit entity that you are taking your business to the next level, which means growth and revenue at the end of the day. Nobody wants to sort of invest this level of dollars and not see your business grow. So
Yeah.
I'm going to add that because I'm the person who sits on kind of this side of the aisle. What's your thoughts, Rev?
Yeah, I agree. Look, I mean, I've seen a lot of applications and I've met a lot of people. I had a conversation yesterday with someone who
Mm-hmm,
are basically an individual doing a consultative thing
mm-hmm,
and see this as money to help support them while they continue to do their sort of
mm-hmm,
consultative thing. That's not a business per se.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that so there are lots of like law firms are service industries, right?
Right.
I'm a partner in a communications agency, and we've got a number of employees and three partners, and that's total services agency. Marketing firms, advertising. I mean, the list goes on and on. There are lots of massively successful businesses that provide services versus
Mm-hmm.
products.
Right.
So, but that's different than a dude who coaches his, little son's little league team or wants to,
Mm-hmm.
start coaching kids. Yeah, there's got to be a pathway to growth, right?
Right.
And you got to have demonstrated that already, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be a business, not you at home, doing a thing, and you got an idea about how maybe you can do more of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something different.
No, I would agree.
Great,
Next
great
question, Phil.
responses. Next question comes to us from Jasmine White. As an inventor with patents, introducing a new product to the world, I notice we really don't get priority when it comes to winning grants. I look at winning grantees across the board, and it seems to be fun businesses like the beauty space, service space, and etc. I'm taking it. The question is, if I have a patent, does that impair my chance of winning this grant opportunity?
Before I
No,
answer that,
launch it. Yeah,
sorry, can I go back because the
mm-hmm,
previous question I just saw something in the chat. Assuming you've made that threshold and you have a services
mm-hmm.
business, then it's the same as anything else to me. It's
As
like
I,
yes,
yeah, it just has to make money.
it's just who are your clients? How have you proven
Mm-hmm,
successful? What area are you serving that is distinct from other areas, other competitors who may be doing the same thing? It's the exact same thing.
mm-hmm.
Your product is your service.
Right.
And so, how successful, how scalable is it? How many how have your clients been pleased with it? It's all the same questions to me. Sorry, I just wanted
No,
to.
no, no. I think that no, I think that's absolutely right. I think for this question, um, so the what I call Famous Amos alumni. If you go onto the site, you'll see a number of those who have previously won grants. While they may not have patents, they have some really interesting businesses. And so having a patent for a particular product, I'm believing is what we're talking about. Um, this isn't geared, this is geared toward those presenting businesses that they're already in, an existing business that's been in existence for less than 5 years, that is on its pathway to growth, that's demonstrating in its application what that next step is to growth. That is convincing the judges that it's worth investing this grant money in. That to me, it doesn't matter. This one hasn't been focused on some of the things you've talked about with other grant programs. It really has been focused on sustainability and business growth. Do you want to say anything, Rev?
Yeah, I guess I go back to I thought about that earlier comment I made about what anyone who's giving money or providing funding wants something out of it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that um, everyone involved, I think from the judges, and I'm going to be a little bit presumptive, and say the folks at Famous Amos, are excited to be a part of someone's growth story, and if I were to imagine circling back to these winners a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we'd all want to see that, they went from here to here, right?
To hear, absolutely.
And so that's part of the motivation for us, for me, the motivation,
Mhm.
I want to, get on, a rocket ship, and so we're going to be looking at businesses. I'll speak for myself. I'm looking at businesses that are doing it in present tense, and I just see the pathway, and one of the main things that is in the way is lack of capital. It's like, oh, if this person had more money, it would help because I know where they're going to put the money. I know I see they're smart at how to spend their money. I see that there's already, an operation in place. There is a system of action in place. There's a base, right? And so I can see how this money will fuel what they're doing. And I want to see that growth story. That's different than, something that's an idea that, if only I had this thing, oh, if I had some money, I could like get this idea off the ground.
Right.
It's already off the ground. It's already a going concern.
Hmm.
And this money can be strategically placed to move to move this business, this
Hmm.
pre-existing business forward.
Yeah, I probably define it as that it's not seed money to launch something. It is
Yeah.
really a business that's already a going concern, that um, has identified, either a new opportunity, new customer, whatever that is, it's going to take its revenue to the next level. And this
Yeah.
grant helps them in doing that, whether it's for working capital, whether it's for equipment, whether it's for the hiring somebody, the thing that is going to help them drive additional revenue in their business. Because the Famous Amos program does look at these entrepreneurs, that are awarded, year after year. There are a couple every year. One is invited to be a judge in this piece. So that doesn't happen unless they are really moving their business forward. We have time for one more question.
All right. Thank you again for those responses. This one is a question. It's almost rounding the bases. It comes to us from Tommy Shocks, and their question is: I'm thinking about the day after winning the $50,000. What advice do you have to keep the momentum going and showing up every day after?
To keep the momentum going for who, I guess would be my question,
The
because
winner of the
the
money, I
win
guess.
the winner, yeah, if it's the winner, we expect that your momentum is going to be there, that you are continually motivated, um, and the excitement of winning it puts you into overdrive, in terms of what you're going to do. And I'd also add that, you should never stop learning. That's one of the platforms that we have here at USBC, where we've got tons of people invested in your success, tons of people who can help you, from coaching to some contractors you bring in, whatever helps you sort of move to that next level. Just know that those resources are there. That's why we're partners, in this with this program, because we want to be part of helping you move your success forward. So for me, I'm going to speak specifically for the USBC side of the world. We want to make sure that you keep moving, you keep your momentum going, that you're enrolling in things, and work with us that's going to help you do that, that you reach out to us if you do have an issue or you need some additional support, or that we can refer to you. That's what I see, happening as part of your next day. Once we get past the, success story and the PR and all those things, we want whatever that plan was that you identified in your proposal, we want to see that plan go into action. That's what I'm going to say from the USB side of the world.
Yeah,
Rev,
I'd
what
say
would you say from your side of the world?
part of the application process asks, how this money will be spent, right? I mean, you got to be
Mm-hmm.
very prescriptive and specific about how you're going to spend this money. So the first answer is spend the money like you said you're going to spend it,
Mm-hmm.
and stick to your plan. And that should, by definition give you momentum, because that's why you're asking for the money to begin with, is to get this
Mhm.
momentum that the funding can provide. So that's one. Two, what I said earlier, which is, these things are networking opportunities, they're promotional, meaning public relations opportunities. They're a chance to, prove that maybe your business has more validity than maybe some of your competitors. It's such a chance to get ahead of the competition. So it's, how do you network with and build some new relationships with the folks who are involved with the program? How do you use this as a storytelling tool to set yourself apart? So I think there's a public relations piece of it, there's a networking piece of it, and there's just the application of the funds as you promised you were going to spend them.
I would agree. Well, we've come to the end of our conversation.
Oh no.
I know, it was so much fun.
Thanks a lot. It's great. I love talking about this stuff.
Just so fruitful.
Yeah.
I do too. I guess nobody can tell them we do. Uh, but just, so thankful for you, for sharing, your thoughts and insights on this process where, we're probably halfway through in terms of people in the application, early enough for people to really take some good benefit from what you're providing to them today. So thank you so much, Rev. I so appreciate you
it's
taking
great.
the
Thank
time
you.
today.
I'm, my father passed away a little over a couple of years ago, and it's doing things like this that make me feel really connected to him, and it makes me so grateful that his name and his his own vibe is still out there, alive in the world and inspiring people. So I'm really grateful for the chance to connect with him wherever he is, and to be put in touch with so many just wonderful, inspiring people. I love doing this every year, and I can't wait to read the applications and expand the circle.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah.
You've heard today from Reverend Shawn Amos, the son of Wally Amos of Famous Amos cookies and other products that came from the mind and the imagination of his dad. And so we thank you all for joining us today. Going to give you just a couple of things coming up. I mentioned that one of the other judges who are former winners, they're part of the Famous Amos alumni, Vontel Eyewear, is going to be with us on May 14th, doing something similar to what Rev did for us today. So please come back then. For those folks that, you might have other people who are interested and you want to let them know about it, we'd be more than happy to have them join us during that time. Also, one of the things we do with all of you who are applicants to this is we have, USBC has its own directory as well as certification platform. And so that platform is by Black. You can be part of our business directory that is national in focus, but we also provide the only Black certification program to Black entrepreneurs. And what that allows us to do is to help you gain the credibility that you need to be in the corporate supplier diversity spaces, as well as contracting spaces, whether that be local, state, or national, federal government. So please, as we work through this, we'll share other information, after this application process about this program. We also, I mentioned earlier, we spend a lot of time talking to our business owners, and we have resource desk hours every Friday until the end of the year, which is a time where you don't hear from us, we hear from you. The stage is yours. You get to share with us the opportunities, the challenges, and you get to network in a space with other business owners as well. So please feel free to join us anytime that you like on that for those office hours. And at the end of the day, thank you. For more information, please visit usblackchambers.org/webinars for all of the other webinar and training opportunities that we have. Please follow us on social media across the board. I think the only thing we're not in here right now is TikTok, but everything else is fair game. Please join us and follow what's going on at USBC. And hopefully there's something there that will benefit you and your business. Thank you again so much for joining. We will share this information with you in another couple of days so that you'll have it for your reference. And we really appreciate you spending your time with us today. Thank you so much. Have a great day.